Well, hello, everyone, and welcome again to the Functional Aging Summit. Glad you guys are here for our session on rapid movement training with Paul Holbrook, a good friend and a long-time professional in the industry working with older adults. Really appreciate him taking the time to share his expertise with us. And he also has a great course through FAI on rapid movement training as well. So if this is a topic that is interesting to you, and helpful for you and your clients, definitely I'd recommend that you look into that. Just a few things as we get started here. If you do have questions along the way, please go ahead and put them into the chat bar, and we will either address them as we go or wait till the end. And I assume Paul will probably have some time at the end for some questions and some chatting back and forth. So I think this is going to be really interesting for everybody. But let me introduce Paul Holbrook. When did you start Age Performance? What year was that?
2005.
2005. Yeah, I know it was a few years before we started our fitness center out in Salt Lake City, and has been very successful training older adults through his facility. And as a master's athlete and somebody who also trains master's athlete, has some insights really into this topic of rapid movement training. If you follow us at FAI at all, you know that we're pretty big on power training and trying to get older adults to move faster, not just get stronger. And so rapid movement training is one of those topics that really feeds into a lot of different areas, not just fitness and performance, but also basic function as well. So really excited to have Paul here with us. So Paul, I'm just going to turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that, Cody. It's been great to be involved with Functional Aging Institute for so many years. I think they just are doing a great job and have done a great job in providing programs and information and their certification for trainers for older adults. It's just been wonderful. So I haven't rapid movement training. We could use power training just as easily as using rapid movement training. So if I use the words power training, it's the same thing. Before I jump into it, though, I wanted to share a couple of conversations I've had in just the last couple of days, one today and one yesterday. And it illustrates how lucky we are to be in this field. The first conversation I had was yesterday. And it was with these women I've been training for a long time. But it came up again around how grateful they were to have this training session that they have with me they come 5 times a week. But the topic was about how grateful they were because of the benefits that they receive from it in terms of, right, we all know about these benefits from just better function and brain health and heart health and everything, and its impact on aging. But it was just another kind of aha moment for me of, gosh, this is important work that we're all engaged in, and we should be really, or feel really grateful and lucky that we are doing what we're doing. And because it's so badly needed. I mean, here's this support system that they come at every time, at the same time every day, knowing that that's going to be there for them. But they just were appreciative of it, as opposed to a lot of their friends that are just kind of sitting home and not aging well as a result of that. And the other topic that came up today was around, and this is something I'm experiencing myself around aging. I'm 58, and things are like, I'm noticing changes in my own physical abilities and even my own perceptions, and noticing my older clients that are getting older. Of course, I'm not in my 70s or 80s yet, but I'm kind of seeing what's happening. And there was this great discussion with some clients today around that. And to be respectful of the aging process, but also to at the same time have a kind of a visual imagery in my mind of how I want to move and how I want to be as I go into my later years, because I think that's critical. And we are going to touch on that in this presentation. And I just think one of the things that we need to do as trainers is to help our clients create a picture in their mind of how they want to age, right? We can help them physically, but also it's important for us to see where their perceptions are and maybe help them shift it to where, like, gosh, maybe when they're 70 or 80 or even 90, they can move with really good quality movement and be strong and be powerful, have quick movements, all of that. I mean, we see so many examples of older adults just with poor movement patterns. So, all right. So anyway, I just want to mention that, and again, just reiterate what a great position we're in to help people. And kudos to you guys for attending this conference and trying to, enhance your knowledge and your experience in this field. And I hope what I present to you is beneficial. And um, I have a huge passion for it. I know Cody does too, in terms of power training for older adults, because of what it brings. So going forward into this next slide, I'm not sure if this is going to work or not. This slide, it will work, but I'm not sure if you can hear the sound. But let's let it play through anyway, which is going to be a real bummer if it doesn't come through, because what I'm really showing is the movement of the gentleman in this video, and it's a video that's in my rapid movement training with a Functional Aging Institute, but it's a clip from America's Got Talent, and it's this older couple that comes out and dances. And if you don't hear the sound, you can go ahead and Google it later after this presentation. But notice the movement of the gentleman, how well he moves and the quality of movement. And at the very end, he kind of does this from a squatting position or kneeling position. He kind of jumps up with some really good quickness. Anyway, I think it's a great kind of an illustration of that. So here, let's go with that. And Cody, I'm not getting any movement on my, let's see. Oh, my slides aren't moving.
So not advancing?
No.
Hit the down arrow button on your keyboard, see if that'll move it forward.
No. Let's see. That's not doing it. Let me just try to stop sharing again, see if I can come back in.
Doesn't advance when you just click on the screen. Oh, there goes one. Okay.
All right, so let's see if. Okay, I'm pausing that. Can you hear that?
No.
No. All right. I'm going to advance it then, if I can. Okay. All right, you can see it, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. So you couldn't hear that, but it's quite hilarious. But
Well,
the
I'm glad we're all
idea is,
muted because everybody was just laughing their heads off just now.
what's that, Cody?
I said I'm glad we're all muted because everybody was just laughing their heads off just now. That's hilarious.
Um, yeah, it's hilarious. And if you get a minute after this presentation, look on it on your own time. But again, that he moves really well, and I think that's what we're striving for. And so much of that has to do with our work and working with speed and power with our older adults. Darn it. Gosh, it's not going to the next slide. Hang on. There we go. All right. So mithridatism, okay, is right. It's this idea of gradually self-administrating non-lethal amounts of poison. Okay, so there was the king of Pontus. His name was Mithridates the sixth, right? And he he was fearful of being poisoned, so he would take small doses of poison to build up a resiliency to or immunity to the poison in case he was poisoned, from his enemies. And a big reason why, I think that we don't move with quickness or speed or power as we get older is we just don't do it after being young, after high school, basically. And I think this is an important concept to have, is that you know I think that if we just kept on moving with quickness and speed and power from day one, we would never lose it. We would always have it. We would be moving much better as we get older into our 70s and 80s and 90s. And so this term mithridatism is important to understand because it having that knowledge and working with your clients, you'll be able to introduce speed and power little by little until they have it. But once they have it, then they can't stop, right? We need to keep doing it. There was an interesting research article that came out about 3 years ago in regards to sprinters, and these would be athletes, and hamstring pulls. So pulling their hamstring, right? And sprinting in itself can be incredibly aggressive on hamstring tears. A lot of sprinters tear them. But at the same time, this research article was stating, yeah, but one of the best doses or things you can do to prevent hamstring tears in sprinting is to sprint. You just have to do it gradually and carefully. And so this is the same concept here, is, the best thing we can do to keep that speed and power in our, going as we get older is to continue to do it. So let's look back at what it's like when we're younger, right? In grade school, we're playing tag, we're doing all this kind of stop-go action, and we get to middle school, and we do intramural sports, whether it's soccer or kick soccer or flag football. We go to high school. We do a lot of this, continue to do this stop-go action or jumping, whether it's basketball, volleyball. So when we're younger, we're always doing those things. It comes naturally. That's kind of just what we do as human beings. And I'm going to reiterate this, but I'm convinced that if we kept doing that into our 20s and 30s and 40s, we would never lose it. Yeah, we would slow down a little bit. But the reason why we see it now of older adults not being able to do that is because we stopped, and we can get it back. So after high school, we go to college, we study, we end up sitting a lot because we're really engaged in our studies, and then we get a career, and right, we kind of get depressed and we get overweight, and we decide, oh, I better start exercising because I've gained all this weight since college and now I'm in a career. And so we start exercising, and kind of the main mode of exercise we do is long distance running, or weightlifting for strength, which is important. But again, we don't really do anything fast. Okay, so you think about, oftentimes I bring up the fact of how many marathons there are that around the country, how many 5Ks, how many 10Ks, how many ultra marathons, how many triathlons. It's crazy the amount of kind of endurance work that we see out there or that's available to us. And I always like to pose the question of how did that happen? Where did that come from? Why is that? Why aren't we doing things more as a society that involve that fast stop or jumping motion that elicits the fast twitch muscle fiber or the power movements? Because when we're engaged in endurance kind of activities or slow activities, we're just making the problem worse. Okay. All right, so you've seen this slide before, but I think it's important to bring up. And the idea, right, is that we lose our fast twitch muscle fiber at twice the rate as the slow twitch muscle fiber. And again, when I look at this study, I'm just thinking, why aren't we doing more fast twitch muscle fiber stuff, right? And yeah, we have to be careful when we do it. We have to use the right kind of, equipment. Say like body weight is good, bands are really good, pneumatic machines like the air machines are really good because they don't have that kind of jarring effect on your joint when you are at the end range of motion or the beginning of the movement. But I'm convinced, right, that if we just continue to, or if we introduce fast movement with our older adults, gradually increasing or introducing it to them is an important concept to do. But again, like if you're working with younger people, 20s or 30-year-olds, get them doing it now where it's a little safer, but then don't let them stop. At least give them that message going forward. So this was an interesting finding that just recently came out. And what it's saying is that when doing a movement, and it's got it's a high velocity movement, meaning it's a fast movement, and you stop that movement before the loss of speed, then what translates into that movement is greater power and speed and strength. Okay. So, in other words, if I'm going to have somebody do a explosive movement with some bands, and let's say that the resistance is around 60% of their 1 RM, but they're doing that fast movement. And let's say I have them doing 6 repetitions, and in that 6 repetition, they're pretty fast with that 6th repetition or the last repetition that they're doing without any decrease in speed. That's what you want. That's going to gain speed, that's going to gain power, and it's going to gain strength. Okay, so bingo, there's kind of like 2 for 1, power, speed, I'm counting that as 1, and strength at the same time. That's beautiful. Now, what this is also saying is that if, let's say that you go beyond the 6th rep and you go into 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th rep, but that velocity slows down. That's not where you want to be. You want to kind of, in other words, leave some in the tank. You want to leave it where their neuromuscular system is remembering and ending on that fast movement before you start to tire, before you start to fatigue. Okay, so stop before you get to that point. Okay, that's where you're going to get the best results in terms of speed and power and strength. Okay, so I love that because it just like makes our jobs easier. Because right, there's so much we have to get to. Cody and Dan put out that wonderful honeycomb diagram of strength and power and mobility and flexibility and cardiovascular and brain health. And what I'm excited about and what age performance is about is, and we've been doing this for so long, is really finding the most efficient way to accomplish all of those honeycomb things, to make it simple and effective in just the exercise selection. Well, here's a great study showing, well, here's you can work on strength and speed and power at the same time. Okay. What's also really interesting is that when you do work on speed or power, you stimulate the labyrinth, which is inside the inner ear, okay, or it's part of the vestibular system. And it's the labyrinth that needs speed for a stimulus. So when you're engaged in a fast movement, you are also working on balance at the same time. I was at about 2 years ago, I was at this is before COVID, I was at a outdoor party, and I from my own work at Age Performance, I've known and noticed that speed and power training has an effect on balance. So there was a gentleman at this gathering, and he asked me, Paul, what can I do to work on my balance? I said, well, of course, stand on one foot when you're brushing your teeth, and that's one thing you do. I said, but you know what? I said, do you have a bicycle at the gym? He goes, of course I do. I said, look, get on that bike and pedal as fast as you can for no more than 10 seconds, anywhere between like 5, 6 seconds to 10. And then stop and rest for 30 seconds, 45 seconds to get enough recovery to where you can go and do that again as fast as you can. And I said, do like 7 to 8 of those. I said, that will improve your balance as well. Well, unbeknownst to me, there was another woman in this group, and she was kind of eavesdropping on what we were saying. And she happened to be an ear, nose, throat surgeon. And she looked at me and she said, that's really interesting. She said, the labyrinth in the inner ear needs speed to stimulate its ability to operate at its optimum. Okay. And I thought that was pretty cool. So I just wanted to point that out, that you are working on your client's balance, okay, when you are working on power and speed. Whatever that may be, running upstairs quickly on a bike, like I just mentioned. But again, once again, here is another kind of benefit, okay, that is combined with this speed and power training. Okay, so we've got speed and power, we've got strength, and we've got improving balance, right? And we also have improving cardiovascular fitness. Okay, fabulous. All right. So the other thing is other research is showing that speed is a critical aspect to Parkinson's disease. Okay, they need that speed stimulant, which they don't get normally. And so one thing that Parkinson's patients need definitely is they need big movements. We do something where we have them just walk across the room, doing high knees and sweeping their arms high above them, coming across and touching their opposite knee as it comes up, if they can. But big movements and speed, very critical for Parkinson's patients. And then there it is there. So you're also going to improve your your cardiovascular fitness with speed and power training. Okay, so we're just kind of knocking off all these wonderful benefits with speed and power training. It improves functional training. Okay, here's a 2014 study showing the impact on functional training with speed and power. And then there's the cognition. Okay, showing that high velocity training can improve symptoms of cognition and neuromuscular function in overweight people. Okay, with severe mental illness, pretty powerful. Okay, and we know that works with everybody, or with older adults. All right, so fabulous studies out there, and big bang for your buck movements with speed and power training. This is something that I did myself back in 2017. I went down to the Huntsman World Senior Games, which is one of the largest senior games. I think it rivals the National Senior Games. I can't remember. They get over 20,000 plus. I think maybe I better say 20,000 participants from all over the world. Um, you know, yeah, France and Mexico and um, uh, Israel. I mean, all over. And what I wanted to do was to test the um, long distance runners versus the sprinters. So I took 15. And again, I'm not a researcher, so there's probably kind of all kinds of holes in this. But it does say something. But I took 15 long, slow distance runners that were going to run. They were going to run the half marathon. So we approached them before they ran the marathon, and we had a chair, and we had them do a 5 repetition um, sit to stand. So we wanted to time them how long it would take to do 5 sit to stand from a chair. And the average age of these 15 long, slow distance runners was 66, and they did it in 8.5 seconds um, on the average. And then we took 15 50-meter, 100-meter sprinters and did the same thing. They were just slightly older on average, but they were pretty much almost 2 seconds faster in their ability to, get up and down from the chair. So it's one of those things. I'm not sure which came first, the chicken or the egg, but I think by the nature of what the training regimen is for the sprinters, for sure contributed to their ability to do better in that sit to stand from a chair. Okay. Um, there's another video. I don't have it here, but another video I've shown of these 75-year-old women doing a 50-meter sprint, and it was amazing how fast and how muscular these women were that ran that event. Okay, here's something. We're lucky enough to have like this Kaiser equipment, and we have this Kaiser air run, and um, this is a gentleman by the name of Ed, and he starts out kind of slow on this, and this is like after about just only working on this a couple of times. But I don't think that's gonna show, darn it. So, sorry about that. Let's see. All right, that one may not show. Let me see if I can go back. All right. I'll show you this next one in a minute. So going back to Ed, which I don't get back to that. But he is really, really fast on that machine, and he's a physician. He's an MD. He's a doctor, and he's never done any of this kind of powerful, fast twitch muscle fiber work until he came to Age Performance. And he has said it's made a huge difference in his life, from his ability to just move, his ability to just kind of get in and out of the car. He can tell a distinct difference between his function in life versus what it used to be when he wasn't doing any of that kind of work. But it's made a big difference. And obviously, right, if you don't have that kind of equipment, there's other kinds of, you can use bands, right? You can use, I think one of the best things you can do is high knee skipping. Okay, I think that's a great move to do if you don't have anything else, and because almost everyone can do it. Another thing that we utilize a lot is a stationary bike. It can be a recumbent bike, it can be an upright bike. But the idea is to do it for, as fast as they can at a resistance that's not too heavy, right? Because if it's too heavy, they're just not going to get that movement of it. If it's too light, right? They're going to kind of just spin out of it. It's just not going to have any resistance to it. But whether it's a recumbent or an upright, and this can work, I'm not kidding you, this can work for people in their 80s and 90s. And if just have them do it for 4 to 5 seconds, they can do it. And then have them rest for 30 or 35 or 40 or even a minute. But then go back and do it again, 4 to 5 seconds. You don't need a long time to elicit that fast twitch muscle fiber. Make it shorter, the better, because if it's shorter, they're going to focus on really, really going the fastest. I also like to do it from a stop position, where they're not pedaling in between, that they're stopped, and and then they go from just a dead stop. And sometimes I'll give them a ready, set, go, okay, to kind of entice them. Now, going back, staying with the discussion on the bike, now sometimes you want to increase the time on it. Maybe you do want to do 10 seconds or maybe 15 or 20. If you want to then kind of work on the speed and also the cardiovascular fitness, okay, or the high intensity fitness. So you can do both, but just know kind of why you're doing what you're doing. We do both. Sometimes I have them do it for 10 or 15 seconds. If I want to kind of get their heart rate up more. But if I'm going to work on really speed and power, I don't hesitate to do, just a 4 to 5 second. So these are some exercises that have been kind of some of my favorites as of late, right? And I don't like to bog trainers down with just 100 different exercises. I'm more apt to just focus on the quality and not the quantity. But the ones I'm going to show you here are very simple, okay? But I think you'll find them valuable, and almost anyone can do them. And there's no fancy equipment involved. So this one here is just simply a quick step. Okay, I'll replay that. Oh, wrong one. All right, darn it, sorry, I'm not going to foul this up. I don't know if I can go back to that other one. Oh, there we go. So this is just a 6-inch step. And the beauty of this is it works on speed and power, it works on agility, it works on balance. Sometimes I'll do this one for 20 seconds with clients. Again, that's kind of a long time, but they have to really focus. Their attention has to be there. I know I'm going to work on their cognitive abilities by doing it for 20 seconds. I know I'm going to get their heart rate up. I know they have to focus. But sometimes I'll do it for 5 seconds where they have to really work on the speed. Okay, and just like, okay, here we go for 5 seconds and just focus on that speed. And then I'll have them also come back and do it again and switch feet. So maybe they're leading with the right foot when they do it because that's their dominant side to use. I'll make sure that we come back and do the other side. But I would highly recommend this exercise because I have like several 80-year-olds do it. Now, their fast is their fast. It's not going to be all that fast, but they're trying to do it fast. And so don't worry about that. If it doesn't look fast, it's fast to them. But if you notice, they will get better and better at it. A lot of times what we'll do is time how many steps they get in 20 seconds, or you could do 10 seconds and then work on that and see if you can if you can increase the number of steps they do in 20 or 15 or 10 seconds. Okay. All right. Next one is cheater squats or cheater stand-ups. And this is kind of just ridiculous but what it is just like, this is great for your 80, 70, 90-year-olds. Have them cheat getting up out of a chair. There's nothing wrong with that, right? We all think, well, we have to cross our arms and go down slowly and come up to work on. That's what you do if you work on strength. But have them, work on speed and power with this. Okay, again, for someone who's pretty fit, that's not going to be that challenging. We want to load them up with a vest or something, but we do this all the time with our more frail older adults. It's just use your arms, use whatever you can to get up out of that chair. Same thing applies here. If you want kind of more heart rate, you want to get the heart rate up, then do it for longer. If you want to just have them really focus on speed and power, bring it down, shorten up, do 5 seconds or whatever. But I really like that one. Okay, super easy to do it. If you're working online, you have online clients, right? You could use a chair that they have, or even a sofa. Even if a sofa is like where they're sitting low and they have a hard time getting up because it's so soft. Okay, it still works. Oh, here we go again. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that. All right, the quick back step. So what happens often with older adults is when they stand up from a chair, or maybe they're on the floor and they go to stand up, um, and they've got their feet side by side and they go to lose their balance. They're going to be a little better equipped, or have more confidence in recovering from their loss of balance if they go forward. Okay, they're more apt to be able to step forward a little quicker than to step back. If they start to lose their balance going backward, it's harder for them because we just don't train it to move that foot back quickly to catch themselves. So this is just, I do this next to a wall. Now, if I'm with someone, I can also just use my hands and my body to spot them, but I'm going to feel more comfortable if I'm next to a wall. So that's just, taking 2 quick steps back. I'm alternating which feet, I'm doing both feet first, or yeah, so I'm taking turns, alternating which foot goes back. So that's just, practicing taking quick steps back, okay? And again, quality over quantity, because you want them to, remember and have their neurological system remember what it's like to be at their fastest. So don't do a lot of them in a row, because then that quality is going to come down. They're going to start to slow down. We don't want that. But you do want to do all these movements you want to do frequently enough, like every day. Like you could teach them if they feel comfortable on this, say this one at home, and just do a few of them. Like how many? Like I did 4 or 5 or 6 there. Have them do 6 or 8 just one time, or a couple times during the day, but that's it. But the trick would be to do them every day. Okay, stand up from the chair. Have them do 8, maybe just twice a day, but every day is what's critical. High knee skipping, not a lot, but every day. So something I wanted to add here. I'm gonna add it here or later. Yeah, let me add it here. So I talked about standing up and older adults losing their balance, and right, they may correct themselves and keep themselves from falling down, or they may not. But look at the big picture of everything we do to help clients improve their balance, but also help them prevent injuries. So this discussion I had earlier today with my clients about kind of reframing, or helping kind of create an image of how we want to move later in life, and really having a good mental picture of how we want that to be. Really, really critical. But what also came out of that discussion was all these things that we work on and how important they are to balance and not getting injured. Okay, because what had happened was this client was working with one of my other trainers earlier in the week, and she was doing some movements that caused her to fall down. So she fell down, and without realizing it, she had, you know, as she was falling, she wasn't thinking about it. It was all instinctual. But as she was falling, she kind of tuck and rolled and popped right back up. Now she's 76 years old, and when she told me this, I was like, first of all, I was like mortified. but she kind of laughed and said, "God, it was no big deal." She really, to her, it was no big deal because she didn't get hurt, obviously, and she just instinctually everything happened the way it was supposed to happen, as if she were younger. And I thought, well, gosh, dang, what was it that kind of in our training that might have helped if it did at all? And the whole picture does. So from foam rolling, okay, so soft tissue work, right, is going to make us more malleable. It's going to help us move better. It's going to help us not be so stiff. So if we go to fall down, and again, these are things we're not going to think about because it's all instinctual. But as I go to fall down, if I've got pliable muscles, okay, soft muscles, I can hurry and get small as I'm starting to fall. We work on fast twitch muscle fiber all the time. And so her ability to react quickly and to move quickly as she was going down was important. We also work on with her a reaction ball after every workout. It's that ball, I should have brought it, but it's yellow and it's got little knobs on it. So when you throw it down, it goes in all kinds of different directions. It's called the reaction ball. We'll stand opposing each other and then bounce that and and play this game of catching it wherever it goes. But that's really working on her reaction time. And so that played, I think, a part in her ability to not get hurt when she fell. So everything we do, right, comes into play in helping our clients avoid injury and have better balance. Okay. All right. So here comes the part on reignite the spark. Okay. This is kind of a important concept to have. And it kind of goes back to that slide of losing our fast twitch muscle fiber faster than our slow twitch muscle fiber. We lose the spark as we get older. And what the spark is that initial movement when we get up from the ground or up from a chair. So if you all would do me a favor and just sit on the end of your chair, okay? So sit on the end of the chair and go ahead and cross your arms like this, okay? Now, just stand up that first kind of half inch to an inch. Just kind of make that first initial movement. I can't tilt my computer down, it'll unplug. So you're just gonna stand up just about a half inch to an inch off your chair. So that's that initial spark. You can feel that initial engagement of the motor neurons, the fast twitch motor neurons or the fast twitch muscle fiber, getting yourself to go from a sitting position to that first movement. Because once I get that first inch or half inch, then the rest of it is just strength, okay? Well, when you hear your clients say, oh, I can't get up from the chair, it's hard for me to get up from a chair, or I can't get up from the sofa, or I have a hard time getting up from the floor, it's the loss of that fast twitch muscle fiber or the loss of that spark. You can also go on your back on the floor and you can recognize 3 or 4 different sparks or engagements in that nervous system and the fast twitch muscle fiber when you stand up. The first one is when you're on your back and you initially have to kind of get up into a seated position. And then when you have to go from a seated position to a kneel position and then a kneel position. So you're in a lunge and you go to get up, you need that initial spark. So when we are doing rapid movement or power movements, we are working on that spark, okay? So we don't want to lose the spark. We got to keep the spark going, keep it ignited. Okay, so a little bit in programming and kind of knowing what on this force velocity graph here, where should we be working our clients? So mostly on the velocity, mostly on the speed and strength part of this red line here. But it also depends kind of on what movement you're working on. So if we are working on movement that requires them, that's kind of linear movement, that they're kind of like walking or, or propelling themselves forward, yeah, we want to work on more of the speed strength side. Okay, so if that power is in the middle, we want to work more towards the speed strength and even to the speed. So when I mentioned being on the bike, the recumbent or upright, you're just going 5 seconds. Obviously, we're working on speed, maybe a little bit of speed strength. Um, that's where we're going to produce the best results in terms of their ability to move forward or to walk faster. Now, if it's kind of a vertical movement, or I'm going to come up out of my chair, or a squat, or a lunge, okay, we probably want to inch that up more toward power, maybe even strength speed. Okay, so you're going to load them up with a vest or some kind of resistance to produce, to go up a little bit higher on that red curve into power or strength speed versus speed strength. Okay. Um, the high knee skipping that I mentioned earlier is a really good speed strength / speed exercise. Okay, so just keep that in mind that um, for the most part, you really want to be on that lower end, more on that velocity, speed, strength side and speed. Um, and how often should we be working speed and power? Um, so I think I'm doing it at Age Performance around 75 to 85% of the time. So there are some times in a workout where after we foam roll and stretch and mobility and warm up and core, I'm just doing all speed and power with no strength. I'm just doing pure speed and power. And I'll do those quite a bit. Sometimes I will do speed and power in the beginning of the workout and then end with some strength moves, pure strength, deadlifts, um, heavy pulls, heavy pushes, things like that. I'm not abandoning strength by any means. Now, if we go back to that one slide that talked about, right, that if we are working on speed and power and we don't go beyond that threshold of decreased um, um, velocity, then we're going to be gaining strength. Okay. Um, but again, I'm not, there's real value in making sure sometimes the workouts are all strength. Okay. But I like to see the pendulum swing a little bit more toward working on more velocity, more speed and power, more rapid movement. Okay. This was an article in the New York Times probably a year ago of this senior athlete, Charles Alley, who's 72. Look how powerful he looks and how muscular he is. Okay, and he ran 400 meters in 57 seconds, which is pretty fast. If you look at if you look at like the 65-year-old record holder in the 100-meter dash among master athletes or senior athletes, so age 65, his winning time is 2 seconds slower than Usain Bolt's world record time as the world fastest man. 2 seconds. In a sprint, that's a big gap. But for a 65-year-old, that's not such a big gap. That's pretty impressive. So what I'm saying here, it goes back to the mithridatism is, let's get our clients working with speed and power, and let's not stop. If we've got younger clients, let's introduce it to them while they're younger, and make sure they're doing it. And that's one of the things that was in this article of Charles Alley, is he said he's never stopped. And again, he's a freak of nature, right? He probably was a world-class athlete when he was younger, but nevertheless, he's never stopped. And it doesn't mean you can't get it if you have stopped, or if you've never done it before, you can. It's just a little harder. But um, anyway, it's important that we really kind of think about this when we go forward. That's it. I just wanted to make that point out. We do it a lot here at Age Performance, and it's really helping clients. And we do have a rapid movement training course with the Functional Aging Institute that if you want more information, more specifics, more exercises, that course has it. And I can now open up to any questions you might have. And I would love to answer any questions because there might be some.
All right, so Paul, Christian Thompson has a few questions in here. And Christian, you can always get on here if you want to clarify some of these further. But first one is kind of what work-rest ratios do you use for beginner, intermediate, or advanced clients?
So I'm gonna work the rest. The rest is gonna be a long enough recovery time that when they go back into their subsequent set, that they go back into it refreshed. So it's just gonna, and so with an advanced client or more functional client, it's gonna probably be a shorter rest period. So I guess it depends on what you're gonna do. But let's say, for example, on the bike, if I'm going to do a 5-second burst and it's a lower functioning client, then I'll give a rest ratio of 45 seconds. If it's somebody who is in better shape and higher functioning level, that resting time is probably only going to be 15 to 20 seconds. Mm-hmm. So it kind of depends on what the exercise is, but I think the important thing is that there's enough recovery time that when they go back into it, that they've got enough there that they can produce their best result without being fatigued. So you just don't want to be fatigued.
Okay, Paul, I've got one follow up on that too, if you don't mind. So, we hear a lot about Tabata training, which is huge out there in the HIIT kind of fitness community. And that's, 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off. Is that 2-to-1 work rest ratio ever anything you work with, or are you always kind of focusing on a little bit of a longer recovery than the work interval, even for your highest functioning clients?
Yeah, I never do the 20 seconds on, 10 seconds rest.
Okay.
That's you're not going to elicit. You're going to fatigue. So if you go back to that one slide that showed quickness, speed and power, and also strength gains. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm always going to go for a longer rest period. Going back to Tabata, if you want to use I reverse the Tabata. I go 10 seconds hard, 20 seconds rest. If I'm shooting for cardiovascular fitness at the same time, if I want a Tabata at this age group, I'm going to reverse it. Mm-hmm. But if I'm working on speed and power, I'm going to go for pretty much full recovery. Mm-hmm. I know that like there's this incredible high school coach, Tony Holler, out of he's in the Midwest somewhere. I don't know, Cody, if you know where he's from, but his name is Tony Holler. He's this older guy, and he puts out these incredible high school sprinters. They win all the time, and he's all about kind of minimalist, where after a warm up, he'll take his sprinters and have them run 200. Well, they run basically 200 meters as hard as they can, and then they take a 5 to 7 minute rest, and then do that one more time. Their practice is done. They're done in no time. So it goes back to the quality over quantity. So yeah, I would work on more recovery. And you know what? You're still going to get the cardiovascular benefits. But then I may come around later maybe the next training session, or a week after that, I will then maybe tap into a little bit longer work period and maybe a shorter rest period. But I don't know if this is answering the question, but for pure speed and power and quality, I would allow enough recovery time.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Add on to that, because there's some good research. It's still kind of in the beginning stages, because from a power training programming perspective, we don't have enough data yet. There's just, we need more variations of training programs in order to really make some comparisons. But really interesting data from a couple of studies in which, instead of doing, basically this is speaking to what you're saying, is you don't want the loss of velocity and the loss of power as you go through multiple repetitions. So a lot of the power training research has been based on, we're going to do 12 reps because that's what you do in strength training. And what we know is, when you're trying to maintain power over 12 reps, you can't do it, right? You lose your power. And so they would do 2 explosive reps, rest a little bit, 2 more explosive reps, rest a little bit, so that they didn't get the power drop off. And they actually found better results with that than doing all of your reps all at one go, because you just can't maintain the power output that long.
Yeah.
All right, so we got another question. What is the best resource for learning more about training adults who are interested in becoming a master's athlete, or rather performing at that level? That's a good question.
Yeah, that's I don't know, to be honest. Unless, finding a I wonder, is that question coming from a trainer or from a non-trainer that's on this session?
I would assume a trainer. Carolyn?
Yes. Yes, I'm a personal trainer. I work with mostly seniors. Work in actually a orthopedic clinic, post-rehab work, and anybody else.
I think the best resource is a trainer yourself that can work with them for whatever sport they're wanting to engage in the event that they're going to use, or in their senior games. Again, training is training, and so if you follow the principles of training, you can't go wrong. But then, of course, gear it toward whatever event they're doing. Other than that, I'm so sorry, I don't have a great answer in terms
That's okay.
of
I'm just not a strength and conditioning coach, so I don't have experience towards athletic training, so that's why I was kind of wanting to learn more about that too.
Okay, I'm happy to help, after this, or if you want to if you want to do a phone call later, and I can help you a little bit with that. We can just talk or whatever over Zoom or on the phone, and I'm happy to do what I can to help you with that, or even guide you into some other resources that might be applicable in terms of certifications or that kind of thing. Because but I don't. But you are a trainer, right? You're training older adults.
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't think you're that far off. And if you want to, I'm happy to talk with you.
Can I ask one other question while I'm on? I do
really quickly, Carolyn, before you leave that topic though, Paul, it would be a great resource for sure. And then I would also recommend, I'm trying to remember his name. Who is the, he's a well-known speaker. His name is Peter Twist. Okay. Peter Twist. He's got some good stuff on training older athletes as well. He's trains quite a few of them. And the master's athlete category, of course, is flexible in age depending on what sport you're in. So sometimes it starts at 40 or 50 or 60. But he has some good information out there on training older athletes.
Okay. We have Kaiser equipment in our facility, and I do some power training, and I think it was from an IDEA conference that I actually sat in with Cody before. And so I like what you said about leaving some on the table, because I was using like the power training on the Kaiser and not letting them drop below 80%. But sometimes when they get down to that 80%, it looks like that next rep is going to be 60. So would you say then not letting them get below 90%?
Great question. That's exactly, I used to go 80. I haven't done 80 for years now. So I think 85.
85. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'd keep it between 90 and 85. Once they go below 85, I think it's time to quit. That's so cool that you're using the Kaiser equipment.
Yeah, and can you do it on every Kaiser machine? I
Sure.
know. Okay, yeah, that's what I've
What do
been
you
doing.
have? What do you have?
We have chest press, pull down, upper biaxial row, leg press, curl, extension, and hip.
Yeah, you can use all that.
And we also have the rack, the squat rack.
Oh, that's a great, yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
So we have a couple questions about being concerned about falling during, if they're really doing explosive, high-speed movements. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's as far in terms of falling, I think it's just as safe as anything else you're doing. And again, it's dependent on what their level is. But some of those things that were, that I showed you, like standing quickly up from a chair, that's pretty safe. If you're in a machine now, machines get poo-pooed a lot. And sorry, I can't remember your name, but the trainer was just on, right? She has Kaiser equipment. And if you're in a machine, you're very safe. You're not going to fall, right, from being in a machine. And machines have a place in our market, and I think they're wonderful. But again, high knee skipping is a really good one. That's a really safe one to do. So I wouldn't, from my experience, if you just are using correct principles, which are taught here at the Functional Aging Institute, you shouldn't have a problem.
Yeah, it does. It depends on their level of function for sure. And, if you have people that are more athletic, that falling is probably not going to be as much of an issue, as long as you start with, they know how to do the movement first, right? Then they can do it faster. If they can't do the movement slow, or at least controlled in some way, then they're probably going to have issues with falling. But even with frail older adults, you can always use balance aids, let them put their hands on something, you can spot them in order to reduce that risk. That's obviously very appropriate. But, if you're really trying to get them to move fast and they're too fearful of falling, then you have to give them some sort of proper balance aid so that they get used to moving fast, build that self-efficacy in that movement pattern, and then they can, put all they can into it, even without a balance aid.
And can I say something on top of that?
Yeah.
My experience has been to, if they don't have good balance and they're standing and they just don't have that ability to move quickly because they are so dysfunctional in their physical movements, that you're really not going to gain much. I mean, it will take time. One of the best things that you can do is to simply just get them to move fast. And that can be done really well and very safe with a recumbent bike. And because that's safe, they have some resistance to work against. They'll get that sensation of really moving fast. Will have a better transfer effect, or make it more functional in other things that they do. So I would really start there and really emphasize that, because they're going to experience what it's like to really go fast. Whereas if they're unsure on their feet, they're going to be hesitant and they just don't quite have that ability. So sometimes that fast movement on the bike can be a great bridge to something that is standing or more functional, that you can teach later. That makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. So we have a question on, give an example or two of what exercises you would use in a high velocity circuit, assuming kind of that machines are not available. And so there'd be some modifications. So what would be some things you would use in a high velocity circuit?
So I would use bands. I would do high knee skipping. I would do those fast movements off the chair. I would do the little step thing I showed earlier. I would use stairs themselves, but just going up, not skipping a stair, but hitting each stair, and maybe only doing 4 to 6 steps and then just walking back down. then doing another 4 to 6 steps. So you don't have to do the whole flight. Again, we're looking for shorter workloads. You can do just, I call them kind of diagonal hop. So imagine standing and then kind of gently leaping to one foot. So leaping to your left foot, kind of in a diagonal, not laterally, not forward, but in a diagonal, sticking it with the left foot, then hopping with the right foot. You're not trying to go really far. I mean, they can, but really just that movement of just a diagonal leap to the left and then to the right and trying to stick the landing a little bit. That's a great move. Medicine balls, throwing the medicine balls down on the floor, or we all know the medicine ball drills, but medicine balls are a great tool that you could use in a circuit. You know what? Another really good one is just have them on their back and get up from the floor as fast as they can. If they don't get dizzy while they're doing it, right? Some clients that'll make them dizzy. They'll get up and they may not be so sure of themselves once they are standing, right? They could fall. They could lose their balance and fall. But if it's a client that is capable of doing that, oh my gosh, that's an incredible exercise, is either being on their back or on their stomach and getting up real fast, and do 3 of those in a row, and you're working everything, and you're working on your fast twitch muscle fiber.
We have another question, which I think is also a good one. So what about clients with knee replacements who are having to kind of balance high speed movements, but trying to also be low impact if they've got knee replacements? What do you do there?
Yes, great. I do the bike. I do those cheater stand-ups off the chair that I showed. If you have Kaiser or bands, that works well. But yeah, you're a little bit more limited that way. But that's what we do with someone that might have a knee replacement. We'll do, yeah, I mean, there's pretty much really, I mean, if you're using proper mechanics and not going full flexion with the knee, you can pretty much do anything. But again, I think the bike is a great thing, and then those cheater stand-ups from a chair are really good. And even like I said earlier, some stair climbs where they're just hitting 2 to 4 stairs at a time would be good.
Do you do any full plyometrics, like doing box jumps?
Not really. I and the other thing I kind of stay away from too. Not to say they're not important, but again, it depends on the person. But if I have any question, I don't do any lateral movements. I'll do a high knee skipping in place and have them move laterally that way because they're picking up their feet really well. But people sometimes will try to move their foot before they pick their foot up. But anyways, back to your question of the only plyometric really that I do is the skipping. But I'm a little nervous about going too heavy on box jumps or things like that because of meniscus tears. So if anybody else has other ideas about that, or if you, Cody, have other ideas, but I kind of don't. Again, right, first do no harm, and I just feel like that might be, for me, a little too risky, depending on the person.
Once you get into plyometrics, the dangerous part is the landing part. So people have to have really good shock absorption capabilities and deceleration, which I think is very beneficial. But you have to do a little more teaching, right, and make sure they have good movement mechanics, before you really get them to do that. But I think the research I haven't seen anything in the research that would dissuade me from using them. Now, some of the higher stuff like depth jumps, I don't think are necessary. But if you're just, doing a jump up onto a small box, especially if it's a cushion box, they can do it. Hey, go for it. But
well, I think that step that I showed earlier, I mean, that's got some cushion to it, and it's not that high.
Right. Yeah. Yep. So someone asked, if the group class has chairs but not bikes, could you do seated step work? Is there any value to that? I think that goes back to just kind of what you were saying about just trying to get them to move fast. And you know, even if you're in a chair trying to get those cheater chair stands, or you can do that, right? But a lot of, especially if they are, you know, very deconditioned and on that frail end of the spectrum, just trying to get them to activate their muscles fast is just a challenge in and of itself, right?
Right. Yeah. And yeah, and I think for someone like that, that goes a long way. That, you know, that again, they're just not used to doing that. But you get them in become a bike and have them just pedal really fast. That really starts to, you know, engage their motor neurons and everything to where they're just not used to it, but it goes a long way. It does transfer into their moving faster out in life in general.
All right, other questions that we want to field before we break up here? I really appreciate the comments about the speed aspect, and I'll just kind of validate a little bit about that. Trying to keep up with the power training literature, there are distinct advantages to training with very low loads or no loads in order to maximize the movement velocity from a functional perspective. And that's showing up more in the research as they continue to dive into, all right, what load do we use for power training? It seems to be there are some distinct advantages to staying on that low end of the load spectrum so that you can maximize the velocity aspect. Not saying you can't do the other loads as well, but it seems to be something just, you know, advantageous about staying on that lower end of the spectrum so you can really maximize speed. So that's why I really like kind of that rapid movement training approach, and even the name of it as opposed to just power training. And that's typically what I use, because it is focused on the rapid movement phase. And in order to do that, you have to load low.
Yeah. And what I also like too about that is that one study that came out showing that in doing that, you will get some strength gains.
Definitely.
Yeah.
All right, we have a last question here that we'll address from Carolyn, and that is ladder drills. Would you incorporate them? Like, do you use ladder drills? You said you don't do much lateral work, but do you use ladder drills?
Yeah, we do ladder drills if I'm not moving laterally. You know, from my own stupid experience, I've had people fall from doing lateral movements, and that's why I'm like, okay, I'm done with doing that. But you can do in and out drills, right? And there's all kinds of ladder drills, other movements you can do on a ladder that are linear. You know, so yeah, ladder drills are great. You know, yeah, we're doing this been doing this one thing lately. Maybe I'll do a little 10-minute video on it and send it to Cody and Dan and have them but we've been doing these speed rolls. So I'll put them on one end of the gym and they tuck their arms in, and you know, like when you were a kid and you roll down a hill real fast, right? So I'll do that across the room. So have them and then go really fast across the room. Now, depending on how dizzy they get, right? I may only have them go 5 or 10 meters, well, that's actually quite far, but maybe just 5. But anyway, they go 10 or so meters, and then if they're able, I have them hurry and get up, stand up, and then walk like a tightrope, keeping their balance. Now, if they can't do that, I mean, if I'm not comfortable with them doing that because they would fall over, I have them then quickly. I hurry and get an Eric's pad to put under their knee, but I have them go into a half kneel position and then balance in a half kneel position. If they fall down, they're not going to get hurt. But I do that to stimulate that vestibular system, and then practice doing something balance wise right after that. Anyway, don't know why I brought that up.
That would make me dizzy for sure. Heavy vestibular.
Well, but the idea, right, is you hear it all the time. They can't even get out from a chair without kind of feeling dizzy. Well, again, it's just, anyway, we know the drill on that.
Oh, that's good. Good stuff. All right. Well, thank you, Paul. Really appreciate it. And for those of you that are kind of sending in some additional questions here that we can't get to, there's Paul's email. So if you have some specific questions, about clients or some training principles, ideas in general, be sure to shoot him an email and let him know. He'll get back to you on those things.
Cody, can I say one more thing too?
Absolutely.
I just want to thank everybody, and I really appreciate doing this. I don't have all the answers on this by any means, but I also want to mention that we are looking for affiliates in terms of either franchising or licensing Age Performance. If you are interested in that or have questions about that, please don't hesitate to call out to me.
Definitely. Thank you very much, Paul. Well, guys, appreciate you being here and hope you have a great rest of the summit, and we will see you soon.